The crew woke up to a beautiful morning. The day of their departure had arrived. Baron Conrad informs the group that the next cruise ship bound for Deuces will be in the afternoon, and invites the three to rest in Beloa for half a day more to pass the time. The cost for the tickets would naturally be paid for them by the Baron. Avin's group gives their countless words of gratitude for everything Conrad and Theresia had done for them. But the lovely conversation is brought to a swift end, as a Belovan local runs into Conrad's estate delivering panicked news. It seems that out of nowhere, a large swarm of never-before-seen monsters were released inside the Belovan silver mines and attacked the miners. Since this is a breaking development and contact with the miners were lost, some of the details about this incident remains unknown. Disturbed by this sudden news, Baron Conrad explains to the group that the Belovan silver mines are actually owned by the royal family of Valkd. Conrad's barony carries two responsibilities: the protection of Beloa City as well as the silver mines. As the Baron is duty-bound to investigate and resolve the issue, Avin and Mile decide to come along, unwilling to let the good Baron shoulder the burden alone. Though Conrad is initially hesitant to ask his house guests to assist in his duties, Avin and Mile insist on helping, stating that they must pay back the favor of Conrad's hospitality. Due to the dire situation, Conrad relents, leaving Theresia and Emil home to watch over the estate. The three of them hurriedly set off toward the mines. But on their way out, they run into the ever-trailing Jimenez, who was unfortunately a day late in his pursuit of Karamas, and is stuck waiting for the next charter ship. As Jimenez greets the group with the third volume of Laban the Swift, he can't help but find their newest companion, Conrad, to be exceptionally attractive on account of his impressive figure. Though just as he began to hit on Conrad, Avin and Mile gently broke the terrible news to him. Conrad is, in fact, already a married man. Distractions aside, the group hurries onward to the Beloan silver mines. With the situation inside still unknown, they hurriedly clear out the strange monsters that were released and secure the miners' safety. Fortunately, due to their speedy arrival, none of the miners appear injured. Though as they were dispatching the strange monsters, Mile can't help but remark these creatures seemed eerily familiar. Thankfully, the situation is resolved quickly and cleanly, but as the dust settles, Mile suddenly remembers where they last saw these creatures. Back in Filden, with Marty and Muse, the exact same monsters were released in the Filden gem mines by the Shamshir gang as a diversion for their attack on Tibri village. The reappearance of these monsters carry a very disturbing omen. An omen very quickly realized. Upon their return to Beloa, they were greeted by Shamshir gang members on the streets, confirming their worst fears. The incident in the silver mine was indeed just another distraction. Baron Conrad, angered that the Shamshir gang would dare to attack his city, swiftly dispatched the opening guards, learning from the dying bandit that the Shamshir gang had launched a full-scale attack on Beloa. The group push on and find Dr. Bando amidst the chaos, who happened to be passing by and has since thrown herself into the fray, treating the local citizens of Beloa. The young men who looked up to Baron Conrad took it upon themselves to defend the city in his absence, and many were hurt by the Shamshir gang. Dr. Bando, thankfully, was able to stabilize the injured townspeople and prevented many casualties. Leaving his citizens to the doctor, Conrad and the group push onward toward his estate, fearing the worst. They discover the Shamshir gang parked right outside Baron Conrad's estate. Enraged, Conrad attacks the group immediately, while the bandits let it slip that Fatima herself is in Beloa. After dispatching this group, a distraught Theresia comes out to meet the team. Fortunately, she is unharmed and is currently treating the injured townspeople as well, but she hurriedly tells them that Fatima had come and taken a meal with her, and they're heading to the port. A panicked and seething Avin takes the group and sprints to the harbor, just in time to see Fatima dock the now commandeered afternoon charter ship with Emil in tow. Trying desperately to catch the fleeing ship, Avin's group forcefully breaks through, only to be met with heavy resistance from the Shamshir gang, who are fighting back with suicidal zeal, determined to protect Fatima. At the same time, Thomas, who is watching the situation unfold, ascends the watchtower in Beloa and dispatches his faithful messenger pigeon to call for help. Though the Shamshir gang that remained behind were ultimately defeated, they were successful in their goal. Avin and the group make it to the dock, only to find the charter ship already sailed away, swiftly disappearing over the horizon. Avin falls to his knees, screaming in agony at this turn of events, as Baron Conrad fervently apologizes to the two, blaming himself for the decision of taking Avin and Mile with them to the mines. As the group despairs, Thomas appears, lawfully telling the three to keep their chin up, and help is on the way. With his message delivered, Thomas had rallied and diverted his ship from its course to come and help. The legendary ship, the White Gull, Planetos, the fastest ship in Alfilden, is now at their command to chase down the charter ship and continue the fight. Meanwhile, on the charter ship, Fatima now had Emil in her clutches. Believing her victory is all but secured, her mood became good enough to start a somewhat casual chat. She tells Emil that abducting her was nothing personal, and in fact she finds kidnapping a little girl in such an underhanded way to be distasteful. Operations like these always leave a bad taste in her mouth. But she confesses that her employer is a frankly terrifying person, and not someone to be crossed lightly. Emil remains stoic and tells Fatima that she will not be going with her, holding fast to her belief that Avin will come to her rescue, just like he promised. Fatima scoffs at the idea, but before she can even say anything, a panicked grunt walks up and informs her that a ship with pure white sails is rapidly gaining on them. Off in the distance, the Planetos pursues the charter ship with blazing speed. While Avin's team marveled at seeing the legendary ship in action firsthand, Thomas commands the Planetos to grapple and board the enemy vessel. With the pass now cleared, Avin leads the charge and dispatches the Shamshir gang, coming face to face with Fatima at last. The sly ringleader of the Shamshir gang, famed for her elusiveness, had ironically trapped herself on the wide open seas. With Emil's safety on the line, Avin, Mile, and Conrad engage Fatima, intent on bringing her down once and for all. Despite her appearance and style, Fatima proves to be an exceptionally capable fighter. Though having committed the entirety of her gang to this operation, and with her standing force now dismantled, she was ultimately taken down by the group after a long battle. Conrad exercises his authority as the Baron of Beloa to formally arraign and incarcerate Fatima and the surviving members of the Shamshir gang. As the ever-gentle Emil offers to treat Fatima's wounds after the battle, the sly leader of Boreas's most infamous bandit group can only laugh in resignation, defeated at last. While the guards come to escort Fatima and the rest of the gang to the kingdom capital, no doubt for a series of questioning on their activities and involvement with the cult of Octum, the crisis in Beloa is resolved at last. With their charter ship out of commission, Thomas detours the Planetos for one trip to Deuces with the original group of passengers. Avin, Emil, and Mile bid a hearty farewell to the kind-hearted Baron and Baroness of Beloa, finding it difficult to express the extent of their gratitude in words. Conrad and Teresia congratulate Avin and Emil for achieving their goals. He gives Avin a letter for the port authority at Theta. Using his position at Baron, the letter will secure them a carriage to take them on the last leg of their journey to Valkd, welcoming them back to visit any time. The Planetos finally leaves port and sails away. But this chapter of the story would not close without Shannon charging in on the last frame, distraught for having missed Mile by mere minutes. Having recovered from her previous encounter, Shannon prattles on about her belief that true love will prevail and Mile will definitely come back to her one day. A very confused Conrad and Teresia interrupt her, asking if she knows Mile. and inadvertently tells her about Emil, clearing up Shannon's misunderstanding, as Teresia humorously remarks that though Mile and Emil clearly get along as good friends, she personally didn't feel any romantic attraction between the two. A sentence that may as well be music to Shannon's ears, who eagerly shouts Miles' name into the horizon, determined to continue her search for her destined prince. While on board the distant Planetos, a disturbed Mile suddenly felt his ears burning up. Hours later, the Planetos docks at the harbor of Theta, the first port town in Deuces, the western side of Alfilden that Avin had not seen for 8 years. The group thanks Thomas for diverting the Planetos in their time of need and for coming to their rescue, while Thomas is simply happy to make some new friends. Promising to meet again one day if they require the services of the Planetos once again, Thomas and his ship depart to their original destination of Brijak. Avin, Mile, and Emil settle down in Theta Port's pub for a quick bite. With Valkd just a stone's throw away, Avin decides to leave by himself to visit the port authority with Conrad's letter to secure a carriage. Leaving Mile and Emil in the pub, he sets off toward the harbor with the letter in his hand. On his way to deliver the letter, Avin runs into a pair of kids playing hide-and-seek with each other in the harbor. Making sure to not ruin their game, he quietly slips past and finds his way to the port and meets the soldiers from Boreas training in Theta. Avin approaches and delivers the request letter to the captain. The captain is more than happy to fulfill a request given to him by Baron Conrad. Discovering that their carriage still has a broken wheel since its last transport trip, he decides to rally his men to repair the cart post-haste, and asks Avin to wait until the repairs are complete. Avin then decides to head back to the pub and rest until he hears back from the captain. On his way back, however, he finds himself confronted by an old, and at this point familiar voice. Rutis had been watching him. Showing herself in Theta while she congratulates Avin on his reunion, she is nonetheless here again for the Cabeza. Somehow, Avin's not surprised that Rutis had broken her earlier promise to no longer hunt him, but something seemed off about her. Her voice carried a hint of desperation, as if this mission was a life-or-death matter for her. Her partner in crime, Bernard, also appears. The last time they met was inside Sage Dinerkin's residence, where even back then, Avin's swordsmanship was able to beat him back. With the experience Avin had gained in his long journey since, he is now more than a match for Bernard. As they fight, Avin easily gains the upper hand and takes this chance to slip away, clearing away the children on the harbor that were playing hide-and-seek. Bernard is unrelenting and chases Avin down, only to be soundly beaten and cornered into the warehouse. But that's when he finds the other child, still hiding, unaware of the events outside. The situation immediately flips as Bernard takes a hostage, demanding Avin drop his weapon and surrender in exchange for the child's life. Unwilling to let harm come to a child, Avin complies and drops his weapon, turning to face Rutis. Telling her that the sacred treasures aren't worth the life of a child, he offers to surrender the Cabeza and the Querupo for the child's safety. Taking this opportunity, Bernard knocks Avin unconscious and begins to rummage through his belongings, but a horrified Rutis intervenes, dragging him away from Avin by force. Rutis rebukes Bernard for his conduct, which she found dishonorable, but Bernard simply snaps at Rutis for pulling him away while he was mere inches away from claiming the Cabeza. They overhear people coming to check out the scene, and their one chance had been blown. Enraged, Bernard calls Rutis a traitor to the cult and declares her an enemy, storming away from the scene as Emil and Mile arrive. Dazed and confused, Rutis tells the two that Avin's been injured and wanders off like a lost lamb. Emil panics and has to take care of her brother, while Mile confronts Rutis. He asks why Rutis is still with the cult, and if she would ever return to Ruka. A question that Rutis could not answer. Forlorn and broken, Rutis sullenly tells Mile that there's nowhere left for her to go, before wistfully disappearing from his sight. Avin wakes up a few hours later, though still injured from Bernard's blow. The captain furiously apologizes to him for the lax security which led to an ambush in broad daylight, and informs the crew that cart repairs are complete. Though given recent events, he suggests they stay in Theta for a few days to recuperate before continuing on. However, Avin declines the offer, insisting that they should depart for Valkd immediately. Having just been attacked by Rutis and Bernard in the harbor, he is unwilling to risk staying in this place any longer. Though Emil is still apprehensive about setting off, especially with Avin's injury still unhealed, they decide to press on anyway. As the sun sets over Deuces, Avin's crew sets off on the final leg of their journey. The holy city of Valkd is just beyond this road. While they relax on the carriage, the group found a moment of gentle reprieve to reflect on their journey. Avin and Mile have a brief heart-to-heart. Reminiscing on their time together, Avin earnestly thanks Mile for his guidance and companionship, for he could have never accomplished this much alone. Mile, simultaneously thankful and shocked at Avin being so uncharacteristically sappy, tells him that this trip was just as meaningful for Mile as it had been happy for Avin. Since if it were not for Avin, Mile would still be living in Word Village, and he would have never gotten the chance to see the world of Alfelden for himself. Reminiscing about his home, Mile quietly takes out the guardian bell given to him by his father. Basking in its purifying chime, even Emil remarked at how beautiful the tone of the bell is. Mile can't help but say that this bell, which started off as his father's lucky charm, is now similarly overseeing the journey of the next generation. Their peaceful journey is suddenly brought to an abrupt end. Rutis appears, throwing herself in front of Avin's cart, forcing it to a grinding halt. Despite Valkd just a stone's throw away, she pleads with Avin's party to turn around, claiming they have made far too much noise in Beloa and have drawn too much attention to themselves. Rutis alerts them to an ambush by a large squad of the cultists just ahead, pleading with them to turn back to Theta for their own safety. However, before Rutis is given a chance to explain herself, another cart appears from behind the crew, piloted by none other than Bernard, rapidly closing in to seize Emil and the fragments of Bardus. This shocks even Rutis. It seems like Bernard had gone rogue on her, but Avin understandably assumes this as Rutis' trap to get them to stop. Cursing her for her deceit, Avin gets back on the cart and speeds off toward the direction of Valkd against a furiously protesting Rutis trying desperately to clear her name. Bernard quickly closes the gap. Avin's carriage has 3 people on board instead of just 1, not to mention it is also saddled with all of their belongings. Worse still, Avin and Mile are very inexperienced at steering carriages. Bernard was therefore able to pass them without any issues, violently slamming his cart into Avin's, trying to force them off the road. The recently repaired carriage, with one of its wheels only freshly fixed and reattached by the men at Theta, quickly unravels against the assault. The vehicle veers out of control and spins out, crashing in a brutal wreck a short distance away. Avin, Mile, and Emil are severely injured as a result of the crash, all of them now unconscious on the side of the road. Bernard disembarks, gleefully muttering to himself as Durga's daughter is just in his sights. Fame, glory, wealth, all of his wildest dreams about to come true if he could just capture her. And then, he arrives. Bellius, in the flesh, unseen by the rest of the world for 8 years since his attack at Cathedral, appears before Bernard with a small contingent of his personal guard. Seeing his cult's grand leader appear before him scared Bernard witless. Hastily taking credit for the handiwork before him, Bernard professes his loyalty to the cause and details Rutus's traitorous acts, asking Bellius to step in to grant him his reward, and Rutus her just deserts. Bellius surveys the scene of the wreck, telling Bernard to approach to receive his deserved prize. As Bernard approaches, expecting a glamorous fortune to be presented to him, Bellius reaches out his hand and fires a ray of lethal magic at Bernard, tormenting him with tremendous pain while the attack rapidly drains his life away. Turns out Bellius is furious that Bernard's reckless action almost killed Emil. For Bellius's plan to be put into motion, the daughter of Durga must be captured alive. Spurning Bernard for his foolish actions, nearly retreading the tragedy of 15 years past, Bellius has decided to punish Bernard with death for his actions. Rutus runs in, begging for Bellius to spare her compatriot's life, but it was in vain. Bernard dies to Bellius's attack, erased from existence by his magic. While a distraught Rutus tries to reason with Bellius for his judgment, Avin manages to stir himself up despite his wounds. He identifies Bellius as the man who attacked Cathedral and slew Asperius 8 years prior. Realizing Emil is in imminent danger, Avin immediately draws his sword and attacks. But just as Bellius' guard attempts to return fire, Rutus springs forth to Avin's aid. Bellius, somewhat unfazed, questions Rutus' actions, as Rutus desperately explains that while she does not intend to betray the cult, she can't in good faith participate in such immoral acts of cruelty. She also asks if Bellius truly gave an order for Borgai to make Rutus oversee the death of her own brother, which Bellius is more than happy to confirm. He tells Rutus that indeed Rutus must learn to sever herself from familial bonds to ascend the ranks of the cult. Avin scorns Rutus for blindly following such a despicable group of people, while Rutus stands. Stunned by these revelations, her inner moral compass shattered, her mind blank, the road that once laid ahead of her had collapsed to ruin. Agonized, Rutus makes her choice at the final hour, to protect Avin and Emil with her life against the cult. Avin and Rutus together, however, prove no match for Bellius' personal guard. Rutus is gravely injured after leaping in front of an attack directed at Avin, with Avin likewise falling to the rest soon after. Bellius approaches an unconscious Emil, his plans finally coming to fruition. But he will not claim his prize without one final obstacle. Mile, though gravely injured from the crash and barely able to stand, struggles to put himself between Emil and Bellius. Standing fast to his oath to protect Avin and Emil with his life, he will not let Bellius lay a finger on Emil as long as he still draws breath. Against this defiance, Bellius praises Mile's fortitude and virtue, but nonetheless, this was a fatal attack. Compounded with his injuries, Mile perishes on the road of their final journey. Upon hearing incoming reinforcements from Valkd, Bellius decides to make a hasty retreat, taking Emil's unconscious body and Mile's corpse away with him, leaving only the Guardian Bell behind, soaked in a pool of blood. From Valkd, Gawain, the Sage of Strength, arrives with a detachment of the Holy Guard. Seeing the scene before him, Gawain can only surmise that he was once again too late to prevent another great tragedy. Avin awakens in an unfamiliar yet ornately beautiful room. Confused, he wanders outside and is greeted by a priest who calls himself Cariel. Father Cariel informs Avin that he is currently in the Grand Cathedral, the largest church in Alfilden, as well as the religious site located in the holy city of Valkd, and he had been unconscious for 3 days. His mind still hazy, Avin thanks Cariel for his services, trying to piece together what had happened. Cariel tells him that Gawain had taken him here after finding him unconscious along the road from Theta. Hearing that the Sage of Strength had come to his rescue, Avin breathes a sigh of relief, assuming that they had been saved from Belias's clutches, and quickly asks Cariel if Mile and Emil are also here. Cariel's face, pained from this question, quietly asks Avin to speak with Gawain on that matter, and points him toward the central chamber of the Grand Cathedral. As Cariel meekly departs, Avin quickly makes his way to Gawain, eagerly reuniting with his other mentor figure that he had not seen for 8 years. He sees 2 men in the audience chamber, one of them being Gawain, and quickly approaches. The 2 old men are glad to see Avin on his feet after 3 days, and Gawain introduces the other man as Archbishop Krar, the successor of the late Archbishop Asperius and the person that Avin was supposed to seek out this whole time. Gawain had already taken the Cabeza and Quadruple from Avin and handed them off to Krar, completing Avin's mission at last. While Avin is relieved that the fragments of Bardis have been successfully returned to the church, the conversation quickly moves on to the whereabouts of his companions. In response, Gawain quietly hands Avin the guardian bell that was left at the scene, and asks him to keep it as a memento. Avin's mind goes blank. A deathly chill runs through his body. He grabs Gawain by the collar, demanding to know what he means by a memento. Closing his eyes, Gawain quietly tells him that there were only 2 people recovered at the scene. Emil was not one of them, and this bell was found soaked in a pool of blood. With that much blood at the scene, they can only assume the worst had transpired. As Avin collapses to the floor, Gawain and Krar try their best to give Avin some silver linings. Gawain reassures him that Emil's life is not in danger, since the Cult of Octum definitely needs her alive to carry out their plans, whatever those plans may be. While Krar reassures Avin that the Church of Bardis will rally every last member of the Holy Guard to rescue Emil if necessary, and avenge Avin's friend for his sacrifice. But none of these words are getting through to Avin. His mind a tangled mess, he is no longer processing any of their words. Wordlessly pushing himself up from the ground, clutching Miles' bell in his hand, Avin bolts out of the audience chamber away from a concerned Gawain. While the 2 men watch on with worry, Krar remarks that this is a wound that perhaps only time can heal. Confusion, fear, despair, rage, all the emotions swirling inside Avin's head, making it impossible to think. The pillar of fortitude in his life collapsing at the seams, Avin found himself wandering back to the room he woke up in. Father Cariel runs into Avin again on his way out, and judging by his face, could tell Gawain had broken the tragedy to him. Cariel joins Avin in mourning for a brief period before asking if he would like to check up on his friend, the black-haired girl the other individual rescued from the scene. He tells Avin that though her wounds have been treated, she is still recovering from exhaustion, as it seems like she had not rested properly in days. Avin walks into Rutus's room, but he can't help but feel a sense of anger wash over him. They managed to rescue Rutus. Mile and Emil could not be spared from their fates, yet her, a cultist, she was saved, but Emil is abducted and Mile is dead. As he deals with this revelation, Rutus wakes up. Discovering the irony that a cultist of Octum had been rescued by the Church of Bardis, Rutus can't help but scoff at the situation. Now that she has openly betrayed the cult, she truly has nowhere left to go. She can't return to the cult, and since she's now a target, she can't return to Ruka either for his safety. There was nothing left for her to live for. In fact, she might as well have just died on the road and never been rescued. Avin hears this and sees red. How dare Rutis even think something like this? Someone who's rescued doesn't seem to appreciate being given a second chance of life, while his dear friend was robbed of his undeservingly. He pulls out Mile's spell, venting his anger all out at Rutis, cursing her for her weakness. Realizing that Avin had lost Emil and Mile, Rutis turns pale and fervently apologizes to Avin for his loss, but Avin wouldn't hear it. Instead, an impulsive idea came to him. There's no sense waiting on the Church of Bardus to rescue Emil and avenge Mile. The only proper thing would be to do it himself. With his new mindset, he questions Rutis on exactly where Octum's cultists are. However, Rutis refuses to tell him, for Avin's own safety, as well as being unwilling to sell out her old comrades, even if she is no longer among their number. She tells Avin that she had been trained to resist interrogation, so there's no way she would ever tell him where the cultists are based, even under threat of death. In fact, it might be better if he killed her right there, admitting that she's too cowardly to do it herself, but there's nothing left for her in this life. Her words only serve to make Avin even angrier. The previous sentiment that the only other survivor has such a bleak outlook on precious life incensed him beyond measure. Cursing Rutis with his every fiber, Avin storms out of her room. Though as soon as the door slams shut behind him, a sense of regret quickly washes over Avin. Why did he yell at her like that just now? Thinking back, Rutis had been a victim in all of this too. She really didn't deserve any of this. Without Mile, without a rational voice by his side, it seems like there's no one left to restrain Avin's fiery temper. Lost and confused, Avin decides that it would be good to be somewhere else, anywhere else but in Valkd. Though as soon as he tried to leave the Grand Cathedral, the guards had already received direct orders from Gawain and refused to let Avin leave no matter what. Avin's attempt to ask Gawain for permission is similarly denied. Gawain too will not divulge information about the cultist's location to Avin, advising him to recuperate and to not do anything stupid. Remaining determined to do something stupid, Avin wanders around the Grand Cathedral until he finds a little girl grabbing the attention of a priest on duty. The priest had apparently promised the girl and her mother to entertain them with some magic, and the girl had come to collect. Though the priest tries to explain to the girl that he is currently on a very important duty. There is a very bad man locked just beneath them in the cellar, and he has to keep watch. Though that explanation is no match for the child's incoming tantrum. Forced to relent, the priest leaves the cellar unattended. Avin enters soon after. Before him, a possible exit out of the Grand Cathedral. Soon after descending into the cellar, Avin hears two voices. Turns out the bad man being locked away was, in fact, Bishop Avarice, having been sent to Valkd and now jailed for his crimes of corruption. But with him was Magnum, having finally come for his prey. Having seen enough death for one day, however, Avin felt sick watching an imminent execution and decides to intervene. Magnum is surprised to find Avin here, and perhaps even more surprised at him being here alone. A distraught Avin accidentally trauma dumps over Magnum, telling him everything about what had happened to Mile and Emil, in the process revealing to him that Emil is Durga's daughter, a topic that instantly grabbed Magnum's attention. Lowering his blade, Magnum suddenly offered to help Avin escape the Grand Cathedral, since he was formerly Gawain's disciple. Magnum knows the ins and outs of everything in Valkd like the back of his hand. Even though Avin is shocked by Magnum's sudden change of heart, he isn't about to turn down such an offer and accepts. But before they could leave, Gawain had come in, realizing something fishy was going on. Not willing to be bogged down, Magnum ambushes Gawain and knocks him out. He tells a concerned Avin that Gawain will be fine. As a student, Magnum is no match for Gawain in a head-on fight. He was exceptionally lucky to catch the old man off guard like this, but the sage won't be down for long. Sure enough, as the two flee, Gawain quickly wakes up as the concerned priest runs back to his post. Surmising that Magnum would be callous enough to tell Avin exactly what he wants to know, Gawain quickly rallies a standing force to pursue them. Magnum leads Avin into the main city of Valkd through the sewers and tells him what he wants to hear. The cult's hideout is the site that they had destroyed 8 years ago, the now ruined holy city of Cathedral, where Avin had grown up before it was attacked by Belias. After giving him some simple instructions on how to get back to Cathedral from here, Magnum departs, but not before a puzzled Avin asks why he suddenly decided to help him like this. Magnum's reply shocked Avin. Looking away, he tells Avin that it's because he too is closely related to Durga's daughter, and runs off before Avin can ask him anything else. Wondering what his connection to Emil could possibly be, Avin takes this opportunity and slips out of Valkd, heading out onto the road toward his ruined first home, Cathedral. The road along the way proved to be intensely treacherous. While the monsters around aren't necessarily any stronger than what Avin was used to, the fact that his longtime companion, who was always there to heal and support him, is no longer here, made each battle a life-threatening affair. Feeling the crushing weight of loneliness while he embarked on this journey anew, his footsteps eventually took him on the Diel's path, formerly a sacred road of pilgrimage toward Cathedral, now ruined and desecrated in the wake of Octum's influence. With his singular goal in mind, Avin presses forward through these defiled roads, but on the doorstep to Cathedral, a disturbing sight awaits him. A barrier of pure darkness reaching up to the skies impedes his path forward. Avin's never seen this barrier before, but knowing Emil is just beyond this veil, he had no choice but to forcefully break through. However, no matter what he threw at it, be it magic or brute force, the darkness before him refuses to budge. While Avin remains powerless to break through, a sinister voice appears beyond the wall, taunting him for his inability. Borgheid emerges before Avin, having last met each other back in Gia when he attacked the factory. Mocking the young man for his foolishness of daring to attack Cathedral by himself, Borgheid sardonically advises Avin to turn back if he values his life, a suggestion that only serves to provoke Avin further. Deciding to battle Borgheid one-on-one, Avin charges at him, and after a significant amount of effort, miraculously manages to sneak in a hit. Unfortunately, this only serves to anger Borgheid into fighting Avin seriously, and Avin very quickly realizing that he is simply outmatched. No longer in a playful mood, an enraged Borgheid decides to put Avin down right then and there. But thankfully, Rutis jumps in again, having secretly followed Avin to save his life. She tells him that Borgheid's strength is second only to Belias and pleads for Avin to retreat, intending on holding Borgheid off to buy him time. Borgheid, however, is happy to dispatch the newest traitor among their ranks, and unleashes a torrent of magic toward both of them. Rutis shields Avin with her own body from Borgheid's incoming assault, though despite her best efforts, she is simply no match and is quickly overwhelmed by the barrage, collapsing beside a concerned Avin. Thankfully, Gawain arrives on the scene before the situation can escalate any further. Seeing the Sage of Strength arrive, Borgheid decides to retreat for now, leaving Avin and Gawain scurrying back to Valkd, with a severely injured Rutis in tow. While poor Father Kiriel scrambles to heal the person that he had just nursed back to health, Avin is taken to see Archbishop Krar with Gawain. With this encounter having humbled Avin and brought him to his senses, Avin apologizes to Gawain and Krar for his impulsiveness and for the troubles he's caused. Krar reassures Avin and tells him that they are responsible as well. After the grief Avin had been put through, the church withholding information from him must have been frustrating as well. It will only be natural for Avin to harbor some degree of mistrust towards them. With Avin now being an intimately involved individual, Krar and Gawain decide to tell him everything they know, starting with that massive barrier. The barrier was erected by Belius, borrowing the power of Octum itself, just 6 months after the cultists first occupied Cathedral 8 years ago. Being a barrier raised with the power of the Dark God, it is completely impenetrable with the power of mortals. The only way to break it would be to also leverage the power of another god, in this case the god of light, Bardus. Fortunately, there is a way to accomplish this. Bardus had divided its body into 6 fragments, of which 2 of them were carried to Valkd by none other than Avin's own hands. The Cabeza was initially given to Sage Lemurus from the church for safekeeping purposes, and by sheer chance, Emil had met Durga herself and received the Quadruple. As if by fate, both pieces now have been returned to the Church of Bardus. Therefore, their goal now is to discover the whereabouts of the last 4 pieces hidden around the continent of Elfilden. Hearing this, Avin immediately tries to run off to start finding them, only to have Gawain call him back and scold him on his impatience, reminding him of the late Sage Lemurus' teachings that a truly strong person embodies the virtues of strength, wisdom, and compassion, and just running off to search the whole wide world for 4 pieces of jewelry is the very same fiery temper that got Ruth's hurt a second time. Krar recommends for Avin to head to Vera Isla, otherwise known as the Isle of Truth, an island housing ancient ruins left behind by a now lost civilization. Its shrines hold a magical property that will provide any curious visitor a revelation. With Avin's desire to find the fragments of Bardus stronger than ever, Krar believes that visiting Vera Isla may be a good shot to learn of their whereabouts. Gawain agrees with this course of action and offers to escort Avin, and asks Krar to increase the security around Valkd in his absence, wary of Magnum returning for another attempt on Bishop Avaris's life. Avin takes this chance to ask about Magnum, about his statement that he is connected to Durga's daughter, and how he could possibly know Emil. Krar explains that Magnum in fact does not know Emil at all. The title of Durga's daughter is not one passed by blood, but to young maidens ordained by fate. 15 years ago, before Emil's birth, the former daughter of Durga was a young woman named Dominique, a priestess of the Church of Bardus, and the name Olesia had already told Avin about. Magnum was assigned to her protection, and the two had always been in love, until the tragedy 15 years passed which took her life. An incident that was recently discovered to have been indirectly caused by Bishop Avaris's corrupt actions in office. Knowing that Magnum's current state of mind is due to his grief for the loss of a loved one, Avin began to understand him a bit better, confessing that in some ways he understands Magnum's motives now. He too can feel himself engulfed by rage, swallowed by an insatiable desire to find Miles' killer and rip him to shreds to exact vengeance. Gawain then reminds Avin that Magnum's path is one of great tragedy. Suppose he really did kill Avaris, and suppose he did bring ruin to both the Cult of Octum for killing Dominique and the Church of Bardus out of hatred, would any of this bring Dominique back or make her happy? Asking Avin to ponder this a bit more, Gawain takes him and bids Krar farewell, setting off to the Isle of Truth in search for a revelation. The two run into Father Kerio on the way out and learn that Rutis has thankfully recovered from her injuries. Kerio comments on her bravery. To use her own body as a shield against Borgai's attacks is an act of absolute selflessness, and wonders what drove her to commit to such an act without hesitation. The two decide to pay a visit to the sleeping Rutis before they leave. Gawain tells Avin that Rutis is a known individual to the church. A skilled magician, expert assassin, and brilliant strategist, she's behind many of the cult's operations against the Church of Bardus. Avin pleads with Gawain for a clemency for Rutis and begs for the church to not punish her, that she really isn't a bad person. Gawain assures Avin that the church will pardon her as she is a victim in the entire fiasco as well. Wondering to himself why Rutis would still protect him even after the horrible things he said to her, Avin and Gawain leave Valkd and runs headlong into a nightmare scenario. Shannon had found her way to Valkd. Famished, destitute, and exhausted, a ragged Shannon spots Avin and approaches him, quickly realizing Mile is not here and asks Avin where he's gone. Faced with the girl that had now traveled halfway across the world for them, Avin struggles and concocts a shifty lie that Mile had left him to go elsewhere, a statement that Shannon quickly sees through and demands to know the truth. Feeling like he cannot escape from the situation, Avin swallows hard and delivers the news of Mile's death to her. Understandably devastated, Shannon takes a few stunned steps back and runs away, crying inconsolably at this news. Avin too is shaken from this exchange, quietly blaming himself for this as well, knowing full well that had he not stubbornly dragged Mile away from his home, none of this would have happened. Gawain comforts him and reminds Avin to seize these thoughts. After all, irregardless of how their journey ended, their time together up until now is far from meaningless. Hoping that Shannon will find a way to recover, the two press northwards, heading back towards Theta along the way to Valor Isla.